My wife coldly said, "It didn't match my outfit," the first time she took off the ring, and I didn't know that tiny excuse would become the beginning of everything. I remember staring at her hand longer than I meant to. Not with anger, not with suspicion, just confusion. We had been married for 3 years, and in all that time, she had never once taken off her wedding band except to clean it. It wasn't extravagant or gaudy. That's why she chose it. A slim gold band with a small curve shaped like the crescent of a moon. Simple, meaningful, ours. So when she stepped out of the bedroom, dressed for a friend's birthday dinner, and the ring wasn't there, I blinked a few times before asking gently, "Forgot something?" She didn't even look down. She just said, with this cold, offhand tone I had never heard from her before, "It didn't match my outfit." Then she turned around, grabbed her purse, and walked out the door before I could respond. It should have been nothing, but married people know. It's always the small fractures that warn you before the whole thing breaks. At first, I convinced myself it was a fluke, a one-time aesthetic decision. She liked fashion. She liked coordinating. Maybe the gold clashed with the metal of her earrings. I tried not to overthink it, but that night planted something in me. Not paranoia, not fear, just awareness. A quiet, humming awareness. The kind that sits at the back of your neck and waits. Over the next weeks, subtle things shifted. She started working later than usual. Then later than that, she stopped calling me during lunch the way she used to. Stopped sending me the funny screenshots she found online. Stopped asking me to pick her up from work because she was busy finishing up. I always trusted her. She knew that. I am not the kind of man who checks phones or scrolls through messages behind someone's back. My father always taught me, if you need to spy, you already have the answer. So I didn't spy. I watched. I listened. I paid attention to the silences between her words, and the ring stayed off. Every single day. Sometimes she left it on the jewelry dish. Other times it wasn't even in the apartment. And when I asked, kindly, gently, why she wasn't wearing it anymore, the responses got sharper. Why does it matter? Are you tracking my jewelry now? You're being dramatic. You're reading too much into this. Each sentence cut in a way that wasn't loud, but was deliberate. It wasn't the missing ring that hurt. It was how quickly she weaponized the question. The real shift happened one rainy Thursday. I came home early from a client meeting, soaked from the sudden downpour, wanting nothing more than the hot shower and warm food. She wasn't home, no surprise there. But her laptop was open on the kitchen counter, a half-finished mug of tea beside it. I wasn't intending to touch it. I wasn't looking for anything. But when I set my wet jacket on a chair, the fabric brushed against the keyboard, and the screen woke up. Her email was open, a draft message. The subject line stopped me cold. About the living arrangement. Living arrangement? My chest tightened, not with panic, but with a slow, sinking heaviness. I shouldn't have read further. I know that. But the words were already there in the preview window, impossible not to absorb. I need to handle the ring situation first. I can't move forward until I figure out what to tell him. I reread that line 3 times. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I did. She wasn't forgetting her ring. She wasn't mismatching outfits. She was preparing to rewrite her life. And I apparently wasn't part of the new draft. Before I could even process, the apartment door unlocked. She came in dripping from the rain, shaking out an umbrella, and froze when she saw me standing there. Her eyes shot to the laptop, then to me, then back again. For a split second, just a split second, I saw guilt, raw and unfiltered, but she buried it instantly under irritation. "What are you doing home?" The tone was off, defensive, accusatory. I explained about the storm. She nodded like she barely heard me, brushing past toward the bedroom. Then casually, too casually, she added, "Don't snoop on my stuff, okay? That's weird." But here's the thing. I hadn't snooped. I hadn't gone looking. And she knew it. She knew because she didn't ask what I saw. She didn't ask if I touched anything. She didn't ask which draft was open. People only say, "Don't snoop," when they're terrified you found what they've been hiding. The next domino fell 2 days later. She asked if she could stay at her coworker Nathan's house for a few nights. Not for safety. Not for work. Not for a project. She said it was more convenient because they were planning something called a joint workshop for the business mentorship program she had joined. She said it would save time. She said it would be easier than commuting. I remember the exact moment she said it. The way she twisted a hair tie around her fingers. The way she didn't look at me. The way she delivered the request as if it were equivalent to asking to borrow my car. I just nodded slowly. Not agreeing. Not arguing. Just processing. A married woman asking to stay at a male co-worker's house. While she's stopped wearing her ring. While she's drafting emails about living arrangements. While she's planning a next step that didn't involve me. She waited for me to react. Waited for a fight. Waited for insecurity. Waited for anger. I gave her none of it. I simply said, "Okay." Her eyes flicked upward, startled. She didn't know what to do with calmness. Manipulators never do. But the final confirmation came not from her laptop or her words, but from something far more accidental. She asked me to grab her gym bag from the back seat of her car. I went down, opened the door, and something slid off the passenger seat and fell to the floor. A small black velvet ring box. The kind you get from a jeweler. But not ours. Not the brand I bought from. Not the box I knew. I picked it up. Opened it. Empty. Except for a small white card tucked inside. Printed with neat cursive. Resize finished. Ready for pickup anytime. N. Nathan. I don't know how long I stood there in the parking lot. Rain misting against my shirt. Staring at that card. A ring was being resized. Not hers. She wasn't wearing anything. Not mine. I hadn't bought anything new. Not something innocent. She hid it. I didn't need to imagine. I didn't need to question. I already knew. My wife wasn't planning a temporary stay at her co-worker's house. She was preparing to move into a new life. One that required her to remove every trace of the life she had with me, including the ring that no longer matched her outfits. And in that parking lot, holding that empty box, something in me finally went still. Not angry, not broken, just calm. Because when someone stops wearing the symbol of the vows they made, it's not a mistake. It's a message. And I had heard it loud and clear. When the truth settles in your chest, really settles, something unexpected happens. Fear leaves. Anger fades. The frantic need to confront or correct or demand honesty dissolves completely. What remains is clarity. And clarity is the thing people like my wife never prepare for. Because when someone is building a secret life behind your back, the one advantage they believe they have is your ignorance, your confusion, your emotional instability. That's what they rely on. It gives them time. It gives them control. But once I understood exactly what she was doing, I realized something. She wasn't controlling me anymore. I was watching her script unfold like a predictable play, and I no longer had any interest in participating. So I didn't yell, didn't accuse, didn't even ask about the ring box or the email or her new living arrangement. Instead, I gave her the one thing she never expected. I agreed to everything. The shift in me was quiet. So quiet she didn't detect it at first. The next morning, she floated the idea again about staying at Nathan's for a few days. Her voice overly casual, as though she was testing the boundary one more time, checking if I would resist or collapse into insecurity. I just nodded and said, "If that's what makes things easier for you, then sure." The way her eyes widened for half a second told me everything. She had prepared for a fight. She had rehearsed lines. She had arguments loaded, ready to fire at me if I dared question her intentions. But I didn't give her any target to shoot at. She hesitated, then mumbled something about packing an overnight bag. I offered to help carry her suitcase to the car. She declined, of course. Guilt makes people territorial. But here's the part she couldn't grasp. I wasn't letting her go. I was letting her reveal herself. Because once you stop trying to change someone, you finally get to see who they really are. While she was busy preparing to stay with him, I quietly began preparing too. Not for a fight, not for revenge in a loud, dramatic way she probably imagined, but for an exit. A silent, devastatingly clean exit. The kind that narcissistic people never see coming because they expect chaos, not composure. I collected the evidence, but not for her. For protection, not confrontation. A copy of the email draft. A photo of the ring box and the resizing card. Screenshots of her request to stay at a male co-worker's house. A timestamped picture of her ring, sitting untouched for weeks. These weren't weapons. They were receipts. Proof of a truth she would eventually try to rewrite. But the plan wasn't to expose her. Not yet. The plan was to let her walk farther into her fantasy until the ground beneath her disappeared. That same afternoon, I went through our financials. She had quietly intertwined her spending with my accounts over the past year. Subscriptions I paid for. Plans she conveniently placed under my name. A pending application for a joint credit line she had forgotten to mention. She wasn't just preparing a new life with someone else. She was preparing to leave me, holding the bill for the old one. So I did something very simple. I removed my name from everything she tried to tie me to. I canceled cards she rarely used, but relied on during her girls' nights. I shut down the pending credit line. I transferred my savings to a new, separate account. I froze any shared access she had, quietly and legally. Every action was small, invisible, silent, but collectively, they formed a trapdoor she wouldn't notice until she stepped right onto it. 2 days later she left for work, but packed enough clothes for 4 nights. She avoided eye contact, rushed her goodbye, and nearly sprinted to the elevator. I didn't ask where she was going, didn't ask when she would return, didn't ask who she was meeting. Instead, I wished her a good night, like nothing was wrong. She looked back at me, confused, as if trying to decode why I wasn't falling apart the way she expected. And then she left, and the silence she left behind wasn't painful. It was peaceful, because that was the moment I realized. You can't lose someone who already left you months ago in their mind. Now came the most important part. While she was off rehearsing her new chapter, I began my own. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer and initiated a legal separation. Not divorce yet, just enough to formally disconnect finances, property, and liability. Enough to protect myself from any debts or agreements she tried to create while pretending to be single. I didn't tell her. I didn't warn her. I didn't even hint at it. She had built her secrecy. I was simply matching her energy. And when the attorney asked for the reason for separation, I simply said, emotional abandonment, which was the truth. Long before the ring came off, she had already left. 3 days passed. She didn't come home. She texted sporadically, giving vague updates like busy with planning or late night, don't wait up. Not a single word about missing me. Not a single photo. Not a single call. She was already living the fantasy she had built with someone else. And I let her. Because the most powerful revenge is not in catching someone red-handed, but in letting them believe the lie is working. On the 5th day, the unraveling began. It started when she called me while I was making breakfast, her voice strangely cheerful. Too cheerful. The tone people use when they need something. She told me she was thinking about upgrading her car soon and wanted to talk about options. Meaning, she wanted financing. My financing. Deadpan and calm, I said, "We can talk when you're back." Her voice wobbled just slightly. She had expected enthusiasm. She got neutrality. Neutrality scares liars more than anger ever will. The next blow came that evening. Her coworker Nathan, yes, that Nathan, the man she was clearly with, posted a group photo of a team dinner. She was sitting right beside him, laughing, leaning in. No ring. Not even the tan line where it used to be. Again, I didn't confront, didn't comment, didn't message her. I simply took a screenshot and added it to the folder labeled Future. Then I turned off my phone and went to sleep. No racing heartbeat, no spiraling thoughts, just sleep, because clarity is the best sedative in the world. But the true turning point came the next morning. She returned home unexpectedly. Her hair styled differently, her perfume different, her clothing different. Even her voice sounded off, lighter, higher, almost performative. She walked in with a bright smile and said she missed me. Missed me. The same woman who hadn't worn a ring in weeks, who had stayed 5 nights at another man's house, who was planning a living arrangement without telling me. But I didn't argue. I didn't push back. I just said, "I'm glad you're home." And that was the moment she made her mistake. Her shoulders relaxed, her guard lowered. She believed I was clueless. That belief was exactly what I needed, because a person only reveals their true intentions when they think their deception is safe. And she thought hers was. What she didn't know was this. The papers were ready. My finances were sealed. My accounts were protected. The trapdoor was set. And by lowering her guard, she stepped directly onto the point of no return. I didn't rush anything after I left that day. I didn't call her. I didn't fight. I didn't try to force closure out of someone who had already shown me she didn't value the truth unless it benefited her. Instead, I did something unfamiliar. I let the silence do the work. And in that silence, she unraveled. It started with messages, short, frantic bursts at first. "We need to talk. You misunderstood. Why are you acting like this?" Then came the voice notes, shaky, defensive, and full of half-truths designed to pull me back into the maze she'd kept me trapped in for years. The same maze where she controlled the lighting, the exits, even the definition of reality. But for once, I wasn't inside it anymore. I took my time. I rebuilt my routines. I slept without that heaviness in my chest. I ate without feeling like I needed to justify my appetite to her or to myself. I started remembering who I was before every conversation became a negotiation for emotional safety. Weeks passed before I finally agreed to meet her, not for her sake, but to give myself the dignity of closing the door with intention. She arrived wearing sorrow like a costume, eyes puffy, voice trembling. She reached for my hand before I could hide it away. "Why did you leave like that? You blindsided me," she said, as if the years of erosion she inflicted counted for nothing. "No," I said quietly. "I didn't blindside you. You just never believed the day would come when I'd stop allowing myself to be hurt." She tried to spin the narrative again. She was tired, stressed, misunderstood. It was never her fault. It was never her voice I actually heard behind the insults. It was always something else, some ghost of circumstance she could blame, as long as it wasn't herself. But this time, her words slid off me like water. There was nothing left for them to cling to. She realized that, and panic flickered across her face. "So that's it," she whispered. "You're just going to walk away." I took a breath, steady, grounded, finally whole. "I'm not walking away from you," I said. "I'm walking back to myself." She cried then, but her tears, for once, were hers to manage, not mine to absorb. I left her sitting there at that cafe table, alone with the consequences she had always assumed I was too soft to enforce. And as I stepped outside, the strange thing was, the world didn't feel heavy or tragic. It felt honest, because when someone spends years gaslighting you, convincing you that your discomfort is overreaction, that your intuition is paranoia, that your hurt is immaturity, you start to think healing will feel like some grand, cinematic moment. But sometimes healing is simply a breath, a step, a door closing behind you with a soft click. Not dramatic, not angry, just done. And as I walked down the street with the quiet afternoon sun warming my face, I realized something she had spent so long trying to bury. I was never hard to love. She was just unwilling to love me in the way I deserved. And now, finally, I'm giving that love back to myself.